Hello and welcome to Raheen Space. This is me, Raheen Fatima, and today we have Kurt Kruger. He is an awesome personality, and so he is doing so much, and he's pretty versatile from being a geography teacher to being on a hijacked plane. I cannot just help it, right? So he's an awesome man, and I think without further ado, let's get to know him more. So, hello, sir. How are you? And welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste.
Walaikum
Aapke
assalam.
suna hai.
I think, yeah, it's because you spent some time in India, you know all this, right?
Well, also, I've traveled all over the world. I've been to about 35 different countries. I've lived in Sweden, India, Australia. I did a lot of work in Japan. I've been around a little bit. My wife is from South Africa. Uh, I've had a magical life for a boy who was raised in the oldest town in the San Fernando Valley, which is just north of Los Angeles. And I used to be able to throw a rock and hit an orange grove. It was so beautiful, clean water, just well water, everything. And then suddenly in the 50s, it got to be smoggy and so on and so forth, and more people. And it got to be as crowded as Islamabad, you know?
Yeah, Islamabad still is not as crowded as, other cities because, it's the capital and most people come here for work from, their hometowns. So it's still not much crowded, but if you go to Lahore, it's so bad and the
Oh, yeah.
traffic is so much. But
And
of course,
Karachi
when you
is
see,
even worse. Karachi's worse, right?
yeah, Karachi is packed. I haven't been to Karachi for almost 9 years now. But when I was there, even then, I was a baby when I was there. So my first steps and all these was in Karachi. And it was really bad there. I mean, there's so much traffic, but now the population growth is crazy here.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the difficulties in life right now is the idea of overpopulation, and it's actually been happening for so long because it's exponential. And when we become conscious people more, and we realize when women are educated, they allow this is the let me I'm a person who's a tangentialist, so I'll go off on a tangent here or a tangent there, because he brought up a few points. When women are educated, they have less children, they educate their kids better, they're able to have the fewer kids and provide for them better, they are able to keep the family together better, and so many more things. And when women run countries and run companies, they run a lot more from the heart. And this is what's missing in so much of life today, is not coming from your heart. When we come from our heart, we're good. Like you mentioned the hijacked airplane. It was a terrorist attack, so to speak. The Japanese Red Army took over the plane. They wanted to be able to get more rights for the people in Japan according to how they saw it. Because everybody sees the world in a different way. Everybody. And God created us all different. That's why, I mean, each flower is different. No matter what color flower, whatever kind of flower, everyone is different. I'm an identical twin. How many people are identical twins? Well, not as many as, common births. However, he is way different than I am. He he loves Trump more than I do. I actually voted and loved Bernie. Bernie Sanders is a man who ran against Trump in the 2016, well, ran against Hillary. I am a person all about life and making it better. So when we get character inclusion into schools and we get to be able to have quality uh, programming on the films, instead of all the violence, we should see what we want to see rather than what we're thrown at. We buy things because we think we need to have those because it makes me look good. You already look good. Did God create something imperfect? How could something perfect create something imperfect? And so on. So I
Yeah.
better stop so you can get a little
Yes.
feel into it.
So, okay, so I just want to make it clear for all the people out there. Okay, so Kurt was actually there on a plane with, I think it was your first flight from India, right?
Yes, I was leaving after a year's study of yoga and meditation in what they call an ashram in India. It was Swami Muktananda's ashram. Uh, I got to be able to bring back. Do you want me to tell the little story of the hijacking?
Yeah.
Okay. The person who ended up becoming Muktananda's successor, actually at the age of 15, drove me to the airport. And I get there, and when we get on, we're on late because of how it is in some places. Things go a little bit later. The they didn't search our bags very well at all. They looked like about 4 inches down my carry-on. They didn't want, in those days they had a wand to be able to wand you to see if you had metal and so on, metal detector. They didn't use that. So what happened is about 45 minutes after we got on, 5 guys ran down the aisle yelling and screaming something. And I knew what was happening, but I couldn't do anything about it. They got up to the compartment, took over the plane. About 15 minutes later, they came to our section, and because I was in the back, of course, because I've been a teacher all my life, and we're well paid. You know how well paid teachers are. Uh, they had an automatic weapon in one hand and hand grenade in the other. They said, "Put your hands behind your head," and we did that for 45 minutes. We had to have our hands behind your head. I dare anybody right now to start doing this and to feel how it is 45 minutes later. When you do feel that, you'll feel like they're heavy and sore and achy and everything else. So I saw all these people around me. I was only about 33 at the time. This was 1977 or 31. I'm not sure. I'm not one of those mathematicians. I said, "Excuse me, sir. Can we put our arms down? Because here's all these old people and all that." Now I happen to be a little bit older. Uh, and he points this gun at me, and it's shaking. And he said, "No." So I shut up. About 5 or 10 minutes later, the head hijacker comes up, and they talked a little bit. And they said, "Put your arms down. You can give us your weapons, your this, that, and the other thing, but you can keep your valuables, and you can keep your uh, medicine." Now, I actually happen to have some water that Muktananda had blessed. And for me, I was raised Catholic. So it was like holy water, as they say in Catholicism.
Yeah.
And in the Catholic Church, you dip your finger in, make the sign of the cross whenever you go into church, because you're going there to be with God. And you're trying to be able to remember why you're there. So I took this bottle of blessed water and I took a chug of it. I never drank holy water in my life. I don't know why I did it, but it made me feel better. So I took a prayer book out because during the time that we had been able to have our hands down quickly, I had taken off my mala and I started doing Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, oh shit, oh shit. I mean, excuse me, I can't say that on TV, but it was not good things. My mind wasn't stable. But when I took out this prayer book, that I used to do a prayer that lasted 45 minutes, I started doing it because it focused my eyes, it focused my breathing, and so more of my energy was focused on something instead of just the beats. So I was able to get into, I did it 7 times. And after 4 hours of flying around, I did it faster than the 45 minutes because that's what happened. And I got into this profound state of meditation. I had never been in that deep a meditation in my life on this hijacked airplane. Now, that was, excuse me, I got to jump back a little bit. Uh, when we were coming in for a landing, they had put an old lady next to me, because there was a door to the left. She started shaking and breathing funny. So I grabbed her arm. I said, calm down. Everything will be okay. The Lord's taking care of us. She calmed down. I started doing what she was doing. Now my mind was totally calm, but this body was moving crazy. So they pulled me out of the seat, threw me in the first class section on the floor, and I stopped breathing. The lady above me says, help him, he's having a heart attack. So the hijackers gave me closed heart massage, nitroglycerin, a shot for heart attack, and oxygen. When they gave me the pill and the shot, that's when my mind started thinking. That's when I started doing what they call it Kriyas, mental gymnastics. Will this hurt me if nothing's wrong with my body, and so on. Then I realized what my mind was doing to me. So I got back into that state of meditation. And 26 hours later, I was the first person off the plane. I got off at Dhaka, Bangladesh. The very first place I could go to pray when I finally got released and they debriefed me and all that kind of stuff was a mosque. I went in there. It was a small little mosque I can just picture this and feel this, in a rice paddy field. And I sat down and prayed and thanked God for releasing me, but I also thank God for releasing everybody else safely. Now, only 5 people got off totally the first day. Then they flew 5 different days to different cities, and they ultimately were released. I think it was either Libya or Morocco or some place in North Africa. They got the $5 million that they got. They got 5 people out of prison, and they were released into the country to do what they were going to do. But at least I was free, and over those days, everybody else got free, and everybody else was safe. Nobody got really harmed, so that was really great thing. Allah is great. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I believe is that it's really beautiful that, the first place that you got, even if it was a stupa or it was another place,
Yeah.
Other than a mosque, you would have just prayed there because, it's somebody else's, another religion's sacred, place where they worship,
Yeah.
I think any place that you find, you should just go in and start worshiping and start praying, not
Yeah.
to just, think that it should be my religion and you start waiting. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just the right time to do that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if it was just, I love Mother Nature. I love being out in the high Sierras here in California or anywhere. Himalayas are incredible. Uh, just God is everywhere for me. And my whole life has been to know, love, and serve God in every thought, word, and deed with great strength, health, wealth, and wisdom. That's my prayer every day. So any way I can do it, I do it. Whether it's through, God gave me an inspiration for the World Fast Organization. And the World Fast Organization.org has a description of how to be able to culturally transform life on the planet in a fun, enjoyable way that when you look at the worldfastorganization.org, you'll understand. But this is important. We are the creators of our world. God created us, and we're his little creators. We have a problem with sometimes we have to have jihad in our own head because our mind is maybe stressed out and not thinking right, and we have to stop the bad thinking and turn to the good thinking and good actions so that we can live a good life and everybody else can. Who doesn't want good things for their children? Who doesn't want a satisfactory life? We get to change life to make it evolve in a way that's great for every part of creation. That's my belief. So I pontificated.
Yeah. So, so when I was reading your profile and I was reading a lot of other things, um, I figured out peak performance. What's that? What's that?
Okay. Well, I'll give you an example. The only photograph in my book is a picture of a man lifting over 7,000 pounds off a standard. He was over 60 years old. He did it 3 out of 5 times. Now, why is that the only picture in the book? I don't need any, I didn't have a lot of money to be able to put it in there and all these other things that I could have done and so on. But we made the book in the first 3 weeks. Winning Ways for Living got to be a bestseller on Amazon in the first 3 weeks. It's not a bestseller now, but there's actually 2 books out of 4 that got to be bestsellers because it has practices that can allow you to get to be a peak performer in life, in sports, in academics, in business. When I was working in Bombay, I worked for Bajaj Electricals. Ram Krishna Bajaj hired me to work with Bajaj Electricals, one of his companies. And he wanted me to be able to teach everybody how to be peak performers. Well, I said, you have to be there. He's the CEO of the whole, group. Your secretary, not just your secretary, but a secretary from your company, and anybody up and down the line. Everybody in every section of your company has to be there. So we did it at the Taj Mahal Hotel in Bombay. I gave them simple practices. Like right now, I'll give you a practice. We've been talking a little bit. Whenever you have 20 minutes of sitting time, your brain, no matter what you're doing, you're thinking, you're doing your work, whatever's happening, and you're sitting all that time, your brain gets to be like a little bit of jello. Now, jello doesn't move so well.
Yeah.
What happens when you stand up, and I'm sitting right now and I'm in in a position with my laptop and everything, but I would like everybody, if they can, stand up behind the chair if you're sitting. And if you don't, if you have your hands free, that's good. Now you can see my hands. What you're going to do to be able to open up all your learning centers and oxygenate your brain, because it uses the most oxygen of any organ in your body. And you're going to take your left elbow to your right knee. If you can bring your left knee up to your right elbow and right knee up to your left elbow, and as you go down to touch the knee, you breathe out and you breathe in as you stand up. Breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. You do that for 15 to 30 seconds. And what you've done is you've gotten that blood flowing through your whole body. You've got that brain oxygenated. You've opened up all those learning centers, and you're able to do what you need to do now. Sometimes you have a nice little smile on your face because you feel better, because you've moved. And look at that smile that you have. You rock, girl. It's so easy for you to smile. And why don't people smile more? That's the insanity of life. What about life? What are we here for? Are we here to be happy, or are we here to be sad? Well, it's your choice. The guru of Rama, Vashishta, there's a book called the Yoga Vashishta. Rama is going to go off. He's supposed to be God, right? Rama is learning from Vashishta out in the jungle, sitting in mud huts and all that kind of stuff, learning how to shoot and everything he needed to know to become king from a little guy living in the jungle. Just before he goes back to take over the kingdom, he asked the guru, "Oh, Guruji, what is your highest teaching?" Vashishta just said, "The world is as you see it." Now, that can mean a lot to people. Everybody has their own view of life. My identical twin brother loves Trump in what he does in just about everything. I think I love him, but I dislike how he talks to people. I dislike how he treats people. I dislike so much. I would love to give him a big hug and to be able to pray with him and to be able to sit with him and say, look, you don't need to worry about people loving you. What you get to do is love back. I have a sheet that I send off to just about everybody I ever meet. It's about love. And the other thing I send out is about happiness, because I designed a happiness class at Van Nuys Middle School. It's a what they call a barrio school. That's a Spanish for ghetto school, or a Spanish for a neighborhood school, but it's a neighborhood that some people don't want to go into. Uh, Great people, because who isn't great? When you appeal to people's hearts, they open up and learn. So in this school, I designed a happiness class as an elective class. It was an elective class, oddly enough, in physical education. But I got to design it. And every day at the start of class, after doing a little bit of a jog over to class and so on, because then we'd do some stretches and then we would start the class. But we would start laughing. Now, when I first said, you get to laugh any which way you want, but we're going to laugh for 1 minute. Now, here there's 70 students in the class. There's a few people laughing at the start with me, and slowly but surely some work come on, and then it sort of peters down at the very first day. Not many people, they don't want to look bad. And I said, look, you can have this, the hee-haw laugh, hee-haw, oh, hee-haw, or there's a machine gun laugh, I call it. It's like, and you can laugh all different ways because each person has their own style of laughing. Well, slowly but surely, every day of doing these kind of crazy things and doing other things that are sort of crazy, people got to be able to lighten up and be able to know that, hey, it's cool to be able to laugh. And so that it spread around the school. It's not 3 years later, kids were doing the homework. Who does homework when you're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, especially in a school that isn't exactly an academic school? Yeah. So
yeah, when you're in mid school, you don't want to do homework anyway, right? So yeah,
getting back to peak performance, because happiness, if you're not happy, you can't be a peak performer. If you're too stressed because you're worried about, I have 11 gold and 5 silver medals in the International Senior Olympics. I hadn't trained in over 11 years before I won the first one. No swim training. I was a swimmer in college. I got to be an All-American swimmer. Here's another little story about peak performance. And this is the power of the mind. And that's why I got into sports psychology. I keynoted the World Congress in Sports Psychology on stress management, in sports psychology and business, because I had applied sports psychology into the business field. And it works on any kind of business. It works in schools. Like this simple little cross crawl movement that I taught you. I taught from kindergarten to 12th grade teachers peak performance for academics and sports in Los Angeles Unified School District, second biggest school district in America. And I taught a simple meditation practice that a teacher comes back the next week and she says the kids love it. She was a kindergarten teacher, little, 4 or 5 years old kids. And she says the kids call it roller coaster fingers. So that's what I called it in the book, roller coaster fingers, because it's a simple practice. And I can teach you that if you'd like to a little bit later in the program, because we get to be able to focus our minds too. Now, if you can, raise your hand when we have 20 minutes more, and we'll do another physical activity that will get everybody's brain going and oxygenate their system and release all the stress in their neck and torso and their face. And they'll have what they call in Texas a shit-eating grin on their face. Again, I'm sorry for using the vernacular, but everybody knows it, but aren't supposed to use it.
Yeah. So so yesterday when we were on a call, You told me that you were a swimmer, and it was so amazing because I started swimming like last year, and it was the first time I was ever in swimming because I always had that fear of water. I'd run away. Like as a kid, I wasn't, in that water, and my mom would let me go near that because I'd start crying the first. I would go near water. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna overcome this fear, and I got into swimming. So yeah, but staying too long in water is kind of addictive. I don't know why, because then you feel good and you don't want to get out.
Oh
After
yeah.
45 minutes, you feel like this is your place.
Oh yeah, yeah. One of the nice places I love doing is going into hot springs, natural hot springs, because they have the energy of Mother Earth. And just like I'm sitting out in my backyard, I have my feet barefoot on the ground because I feel the earth has a vibration. And when you are touching Mother Earth with your bare feet or lying down or whatever, you feel her vibration. And I say her just as a metaphor. Uh, the vibration helps to balance and harmonize all your cells in your body because your cells have vibrations themselves. That's why when you get stressed out, they're frenetic. And that's why people, when they're stressed, they can't perform so well. They get sick and so on. That's why when you fear the COVID or you fear something else, you fear losing or you fear winning or whatever it might be, the fear depletes you of energy. The, one of our presidents, Franklin Roosevelt, said, the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. And it's a wasted energy. Now, the only way that I got to be an All American swimmer, which is the top 10 in America in a particular stroke, was at the state championships in California for junior colleges. My college was going to try to beat the college that we were swimming in their pool for the state championships. This is the best swimmers from all over the state
Uh,
against each other in all the different strokes. Yes?
for
You have a
for
question?
a moment, I couldn't hear you.
Uh, there was a little bit of an alarm. Yeah, okay. Hopefully it'll stay off. Uh, so I get there, and I had just done a time of 108 in the 100 breaststroke in the Southern California Championships. That was the drop from a 110. So I dropped 2 seconds to my fastest time, which was now a 108. I go to the state championships in my preliminary heat. I swam a 105.2. I dropped almost 3 full seconds in 1 week. For a 100 yard breaststroke, that's an awesome, unbelievable drop. But I tied a man from Foothill College to get into the championships, to get points for my team. Because this was only preliminaries in the state championships. And so I have a half hour to prepare. I go into the locker room with a buddy of mine. He massages my shoulders, and I'm telling him my splits. That means the time for each lap that I'm going to do as he's massaging my shoulders, and I'm focusing and so on. I go out there, get on the blocks, on the gun. They say that I was half a body length ahead just on the dive. Just on the dive. And this guy who's I was swimming against had his best time was a 104. So when I told my friend my splits that I was going to do, I told him I was going to do a 104 because I thought I could beat him. What happened is I did a 103.7. I did faster, but I beat him even more because he psyched out. He choked. He saw me ahead so much that his mind made him get defeated, and I flew on top of the water. And I got my scholarship to the University of Colorado and so on and so forth.
Mm.
So I started learning about what gets you to be a peak performer. I had a friend who I learned from a lot on nutrition. He's probably one of the best nutritionists in the world. I consulted on his first book, actually. His name is Dr. Gabriel Cousens. He has a book out now called Conscious Eating. And I learned a lot of information about it. And then when I keynoted, excuse me, I didn't keynote, I spoke at the Olympic Scientific Congress in 1984 on meditation and the ultimate performance in sports. Now, remind me about Bob Beamon. But the keynote speaker for nutrition was a man called Michael Colgan from down in New Zealand. And he had his presentation say, we gave supplements and we gave placebos to athletes that were marathoners and strength people. And we tested them before we gave them those things. And then we tested them at the end of the 6 weeks or whatever the experiment was. The ones that had the placebo effect had a placebo effect. The ones that had the real nutrition had up to 50% more endurance and strength. Their IQs went up 20 points higher, up to 20 points higher IQs because of supplementation. Now, when you eat the proper food, when you get supplemented because the foods, the way they're produced with not organic foods and so on, those can be very harmful, especially GMOs. GMOs are horrible for the human body.
Yeah.
God made this thing, and when you put GMOs into it, that's a human creation, and the body doesn't know what the hell to do with it except change, and it's not change for the best. But I digress there. Okay, now I'm going to jump back. Now that's part of my program when I teach people, even in businesses, because Bajaj at his headquarters, he had a fabulous executive dining room. By the way, best Indian food I ever had. But we got to modify that to a degree. And when you eat correctly, so much more. You have less stress, you're healthier, and so on and so forth. Now, I want to jump back to my presentation at the Olympic Scientific Congress. Bob Beamon keynoted the sports psychology section. So here's this man who had long jumped over 2 feet further than anybody had in history in the Mexico City Olympics. If I was standing in the middle of his long jump, he would have almost gone over my head. He was said to be about 6 feet high in the middle of his long jump. A lot of people can't even jump 6 foot as high as they can, just on a high jump. So he's keynoting it, and he said that he was in this meditative state of mind. When I talked to him afterwards, we commiserated. I said, how would you have liked to have been able to get into that state consciously at will before any event? And of course, who wouldn't? Because you could be a peak performer. All your energy goes through to what you are focused on. There's 2 kinds of samadhi, and most people don't know there's 2. Most people only have the idea of one form of samadhi. Samadhi is the deepest state of meditation. It's the number 8 on the Yoga Sutras. But again, this samadhi, most people think it's no thoughts. And it is. That's nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa samadhi is no thoughts. Now, in science, they can hook up your head to check your brain waves, and there are people that go to 0. They should be dead, but they're in what you might call suspended animation. And they can do, I knew a guy who held his breath for over half an hour in a neuropsychiatric institute. His name was Swami Nada Brahmananda. But you can get your brain waves down to 0, and then you can activate them again. Or you don't, and you take what they call live samadhi. And you then have the opposite, which is almost 1,000 hertz or so brainwave activity. That's Sahaj Samadhi. Sahaj Samadhi has all kinds of thoughts, but you're the witness of your thoughts. It's like you're watching this play of consciousness, this incredible play of consciousness, these leaves of this tree just fluttering and so on and so forth. And you get caught into this, but you're observing it instead of being caught up in it. And you're in the same exact experience that the person in Nirvikalpa Samadhi has. The experience is the same, but the brain waves are totally opposite. So there's a little bit of understanding about deepness of meditation. And there's a lot of different ways to meditate. There's a number of them written up in my book called Winning Ways for Living. There's all kinds of other good things in there too, not only about nutrition, but about emotional things, how you can deal with emotions and become a peak performer. And the only way you can be a peak performer too, and that's also mentioned in the book, is being a good person. If you're not a good person, you're worried about getting caught or about other things. And so you're not feeling as good if you're not a good person. You can't perform as well.
I cannot hear you, sir.
Feeling. When do you now?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. I don't know if I could get off this. Okay, we're gonna have to maybe have that happen again, and it'll just happen for a short time. Sorry for the interference.
No, it's totally okay.
Okay, my dear, are there any questions from you? I've been ranting and raving.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you that you work with so many people who would want to make world records when it comes to swimming as an athlete. So you work with so many athletes. What do you think is, how is their mindset? Because they have this very winning mindset that they have to maintain, when you're an athlete.
Well, at the top level, they have to have obviously that confidence. And the confidence comes from the routines that you get into and what you do. When you are every day, working as hard as you can at something that you love, although you feel really tired and exhausted and so on, you have this state that you can get into. And swimmers and people who are doing what they call the cross crawl movement get into that zone easier. The reason is because of that cross crawl. It balances the neocortex, which means the synapse of the brain, the left and right hemispheres, happens more readily. So you're using more of your neocortex, your new brain. And you can get into that zone, which is that altered state. And again, that's a delta wave or whatever. It's a deeper brainwave activity. And it's again because of your practice makes perfect. And perfect practice makes perfect, right? And so on. There's all kinds of phrases, but the idea to have a coach, they see things that you can't. My coach, when I first started really training at the age of 17 and a half, now, normal swimmers train when they're real young. I was a swimmer at San Fernando Park Pool, this little pool down about a mile away from my house. I'd walk there, train, walk back, whatever. I was a good swimmer in this little pool. I actually got to be pretty good. I took second in LA County for park pool swimmers. But there's something else there was AAU swimming, American Athletic Union. That was the big swimmers. They were the sharks. I was a little minnow. I was like a little guppy. But then I got onto a club team in AAU at the age of 17 and a half. The man who was our coach ended up being in the Hall of Fame as coaches in the AAU. He was so good. We had 4 world record holders on our team that I joined. And here's this little guppy that's diving in with these sharks. But within 2 years of training with this man and my college coach, I got to be an All-American. And that's the power of coaching. And had my swim coach known about nutrition, I could have been even better. It took me all the way to the 1970s to get into organic food. But thank God I got into organic food in the 70s. And everybody was making fun of me too. You're going to health food stores, you're spending so much money. I says, yeah, but I like my health. Why do you think they call it a health food store? What are you eating? You know? And I tell them about pesticides and all that stuff. And now they're proving that it's causing all kinds of sicknesses, and it's ruining our environment. It's causing possibly this COVID thing could be caused by some sort of chemical that they released into wherever. When we treat Mother Nature correctly, it's like Ayurvedic medicine is so much better. Natural healing medicines, using herbs and plants and so on.
Yes, that's really correct. Because I think, medicine is never the first choice, and especially when you see in India, and because you've been to India and also in Pakistan, medicines are nowadays, yeah, it's growing that medicines for some people are the first choice, but for some people, we'd rather make, some, different herbs, tea, and make something, different for ourselves. Drink it in, our flus or our sore throat. It's better.
Yeah, totally. I'm drinking rooibos tea. Rooibos is a plant from South Africa. It is very medicinal. It has a lot of probiotics. And this is one thing, it's like Tulsi has also got a lot of probiotics. And we want to be able to help the biome rather than the antibiome. Because when you take an antibiotic, it doesn't discriminate what it's killing. It kills all kinds of these biotics. And so it's killing the good biome as well as the bad biome. When you take something like yogurt has all these probiotics in it. So, and kefir and all kinds of different things you can have.
Yeah. So now, because our session is coming to an end, at the end, I'd like to ask you for a message for our audience.
Oh boy, the message for the audience. Well, seek and ye shall find. Go deep within yourself, learn to meditate, contemplate the highest and best for not only yourself, but also serve others. When you serve others, there's truly no others. All of this is God's creation. All of this is part of God. So we serve each other by serving God in each other. And I'd love to be able to see you again. If you want to get in touch with me, you can look at successsystemsinternational.net. You can also email me at successsystemsinternational@gmail. You can read the book, Winning Ways for Living. There's 4 actually, but the 4th one was also a bestseller. The first one and the 4th one were bestsellers. But the last one is the compilation volume of the first 3 volumes. And it has a number of other practices that allow you to be all you can be. So you don't have to join the army.
Mm-hmm.
I love you. Be well and love others.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the audience for watching, commenting so much. There will be some comments that I might not be able to show here because there's so many coming in, but do know that I always see them and I'm always so happy when I am appreciated. And thank you so much for coming, sir. It was really interesting. The stories and everything was so interesting.
Well, I'm happy that you're happy, and just keep on smiling, and everybody else keeps smiling as much as you can, because other people then get to smile because they'll see yours.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and I'm ending the broadcast, and we will come again with another marvelous guest. So thank you so much, and goodbye.
Bye.